to talk about right now is the way that the descent into tyranny has been facilitated through marginalization, through racism, and through the unwillingness of us to talk about it. So you will hear how attorneys general safeguarded schools, health research, and equitable policing practices in their communities. We will name the fear that pushes institutions to fold and the safeguards that we need to hold them upright. So when we lift up those who are fighting back and learn from this history, we can set a new agenda. So instead of anticipatory obedience today, we want to build a template for the exact opposite. Preemptive alliance. Preemptive alliance. So instead of appeasement, we're calling for resistance. Instead of capitulation, we're calling for fortitude. Instead of settlement, we're calling for disruption. So are you ready to go to work, Netroots Nation? Are you ready to hear from the lawyers who are on the front line fighting for our democracy? All right, so let's go. Please join me in welcoming first Attorney General Keith Ellison, who took a moment that shook the world. So after winning convictions in the George Floyd case, his team secured a consent decree with real timelines and public benchmarks. He arrives with proof that preparation moves the needle and that communities keep the heartbeat between court dates moving. Welcome, Keith. Please also join Attorney General Rob Bonta from my state of California.
Thank you.
His office set up a litigation fund, scaled the team, and moved with speed to keep money flowing to classrooms, clinics, bridges, and research. Bonta marries courtroom wins with know your rights briefings, multilingual guidance, and practical tools for schools, for employers, and nonprofits. Welcome, Rob. And last but not least, please welcome Attorney General Matthew Platkin. So, Attorney General Platkin brings a planner's precision and a neighbor's cadence to New Jersey. When federal lawyers signaled retreat in cases that would protect families, his office stepped in so that lawful protection still had a champion in the court. He gives institutions a steadier way to stand firm, confirm the law, count your state protections, call allies, document pressure, brief your people, and keep faith with the mission. Welcome, Matthew, and welcome all of our attorneys general. All right. So I'm the new kid on the block. They have been going around the country having these conversations with citizens so they are aware not only of what their rights are, but they're aware what we have to do. They can hold their role. But the first thing they'll tell you is that it's not enough. We all have to be actively engaged. So what we're going to do in this conversation is talk about the fight back, talk about what a non-appeasement strategy looks like, talk about where there's room to fight and what happens when we don't fight. At the end of the day, though, the question is how we are going to become mobilized. So let's get started. The first round of this, I'm going to ask each of our AGs to describe an issue or a moment where instead of yielding, they've used their power to defend their communities, while others have chosen to comply. So Keith, I want to come to you first. You know, I mentioned 2020.
Sure.
It seemed like a half a century ago now. But beyond the successful prosecution of Derek Chauvin, you have been able to push forward reforms that came out of that tragic situation. The federal government, however, has stepped back. They've removed key safeguards, including a federal judge who would compel compliance, independent monitors that would track progress, timelines with public data reporting that keeps reforms on schedule. So for those who are skeptical about the scope of reform and its meaningfulness, can you outline what is lost when a federal consent decree is withdrawn, and what steps you have taken in Minnesota as the Attorney General to hold the line?
Yeah, well, what's lost is oversight. You should know that a few years ago, back in 2020, maybe about 1,000 people would, die in a officer-involved interaction, and now it's about 1,200, which is really tragic. But you should
more people are being killed.
Now they are, yeah, the numbers have increased. But you should know that these things are devastating to communities, because one thing is that if you just total up the civil rights lawsuits in Minneapolis, we've spent $100 million in just paying police misconduct payouts. New York has paid way more, LA has paid more, and a lot of places have paid more. That's just civil lawsuits. Then, if you have a horrible relationship between police and community, there will be a civil uprising. That can cost billions in terms of lives. And then there's trust. And in a progressive audience, I really want to say this to you all. It is a bad thing when you cannot have a trust relationship with the people who are sworn to protect and serve you, because what happens is that people don't call on the people who's supposed to protect and serve them, and the reality is you will see crime spikes. It's a statistical reality that correlates. And what is the price on that? When an officer says, "Did you hear that domestic violence thing in your building?" and people say no because they just don't trust the police, that's devastating to communities. So it is important that we solve this problem. So when Trump 2 said we're not going to enforce any federal consent decrees, we lost oversight. We lost the opportunity to establish high standards so that people could feel that they could really trust the people who's supposed to protect and serve them. We lost this, and it hurt community. And quite honestly, and some of y'all might be surprised, but I have to be honest and tell you, there were a lot of police officers who wanted that oversight because they want to work in a department where they feel good about what they do, and they don't want the worst elements in their department to control the department. And they felt that the consent decree was a way to finally create a culture where good police work, protecting and serving and with respect and constitutionality, could be rewarded, and bad conduct would be punished. And that's the kind of departments, there's 18,000 police departments in America. So the loss of that tool is harmful, devastating, and is ultimately going to make Minneapolis less safe. But not only Minneapolis, think about places like Memphis, think about a lot of other cities where we really do need those critical reforms. And I'll just say this before I wrap up. Trump won. Before George Floyd was murdered, Trump won. He gets rid of the consent decrees all over the country. Then he goes to Suffolk County Police Department and says to a graduating class of police officers, "Hey, when you're getting them arrested and you're putting them in the car, don't worry about putting your hand over their head. Just let them bash their head." He says this in front of the crowd. The chief says, "Don't be saying stuff like that." But anyway, he does it. He says all this. He says uncuff the police, and it creates an atmosphere of lawlessness, which I believe helped precipitate what happened to George Floyd. Yes, 4 officers killed George Floyd, but the climate that this president created helped to kill George Floyd. And, we had the largest mass protest in the country over the course of that time. Ever. And so let me just stop right there and say, this is bad for your city. This is bad for our country. And it's another example of why we have to stand up against this tyrannical authoritarian. So.
And Keith, while you're on that, thank you for that. What have you been able to do in your capacity as the state's Attorney General to reinforce these new commitments?
So we prosecuted not just Chauvin, but we prosecuted all 4 of the officers who did this. And we got convictions on all of them. They all went to prison. But here's the thing. I knew, and I said at the time, I don't want anybody to say, okay, we took care of that, done. We needed meaningful cultural reform within this department. And the only way to get it, so I represented the state of Minnesota, and the state of Minnesota sued the city of Minneapolis for pattern and practice of racial discrimination and unconstitutional policing practices. And we had massive reform in those practices, including things like complaints filed have to be resolved within a certain amount of time. They can't just languish on the chief's desk forever. Things like stopping no-knock policies, stopping chase policies, stopping certain chokehold policies, and so there were a number of things. I'm not claiming we have nirvana, but we are very fortunate that we don't have to rely on Trump to maintain that. But the federal partner is an important partner, a critical partner, and the loss of them is hard for us. And so again, he did damage. You should know, though, and the people ask me, what if he pardoned Chauvin? Well, he's still got state charges. He owes
there you have it.
He owes us 22 and a half years.
There you have it.
So there you go.
And you know, so it was something I worried about when he let go all of the people involved in January 6th. And then I said, oh no, Keith got him on lock. That Chauvin's not going anywhere.
So those people, January 6th, injured 140 officers who guard the Capitol. Several of them died. One of them lost their eye, and he just let them go. So that tells you what he thinks about law enforcement. You know?
So I'm going to ask you just to put one final point on it, because that is a contradiction, right? He claims to be a supporter of law enforcement. He goes, to the academies and says, handcuffs off, do what you got to do. And on the other hand, he releases people who have damaged police officers and even killed them. So what is the moral of that story?
The moral of the story is, if police officers are acting in an unconstitutional way that might include even racial bias, he's for them. If they uphold the law against him by stopping people he sent to the Capitol to destroy the Capitol, he's against them, right? So it is pure. He is very consistent when it comes to authoritarian, tyrant sort of behavior when it comes to law enforcement. He doesn't, for example, demand that law enforcement show their face when they enforce immigration laws. He doesn't require that they abide by basic constitutional principles, because that's not what he's trying to do. He's weaponizing police against a free democratic people, which jeopardizes our freedom. And this is a critical issue, because whether you have a democratic society or not, a lot of it turns on how the police are being used.
That's right.
Against the people. And you can have a police state very easily with this guy.
And part of this theme is none of this is new. We've seen this before. We've seen the unleashing of police power. We've seen what happens when the police are turned against democracy rather than for it. AG Platkin, let me come to you. So in February of this year, a Dear Colleague letter was issued by the federal government in hopes of pressuring educational institutions to dismantle their DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. I'm going to say the word, right? Because if they're opposed to diversity, equity, inclusion, I want them to tell me what part of that they are opposed to. And in the face of this, you publicly affirmed New Jersey's commitment to inclusive schooling. And you did that even though many people believe that this was a losing issue. So we know others have sacrificed these values on the altar of expedience. So can you share not only what your office did to defend these educational initiatives, but why you felt it was so important to stand on those principles.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for having me, and to Netroots, thank you for you all for being here. They come to New Orleans in August and show the support for what we're standing up for. Look, the Dear Colleague letter is a great example of what this administration has done. By the way, it came out on Valentine's Day at like 7 p.m. East Coast time. I got it when I was having dinner with my wife, which I probably shouldn't admit that she's a school psychologist, so this is what we do. But you know, you read that letter, and what does it say? I mean, it's a long page, it's several pages, but what it basically said is, if you have anything that they consider to be DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, without defining, even attempting to define what it means, you lose the entirety of your federal public education spending, 100%. That's what that letter said. And then there's been several iterations of that same threat over the past 5 or 6 months. And so, you know, we've done a number of things, and I'm really proud to be here with Keith and Rob and several of our colleagues. We've sued on it, we've put guidance out, but just, we need to remember, it's true with the law enforcement context, it's true with this discussion, what are we talking about here? Whose lives are being affected? Now, I'm the Attorney General, but I'm a parent. I got 2 young kids.
Right.
I have kids in public school. Okay, I've taken on issues that are not super, I guess, now popular with respect to trans youth and DEI in our schools. And I can tell you, okay, my 6-year-old, there is a 0% chance that the Martin Luther King Day event, the same kind of event that President Trump had in the Oval Office that would qualify as a DEI event under his own directive, is going to hurt my kid. But what will hurt him is cutting those education fundings. What will hurt him is refusing to stop a gun violence epidemic that is hurting our youth, or taking on a social media crisis that's creating a mental health epidemic. Those are things we can have a conversation about our kids' well-being. It's not this nonsense. And we have to fight, I know we're going to talk about this, we have to fight in court, but you all are fighting in the court of public opinion. And I'll tell you, I'll finish with this. You know, I was just saying to Rob, I coach my kids' sports, and I was on the soccer field. And a mom who I know, but not super well, came up to me shortly after this letter came out. And she said to me, you know, my older child is severely autistic. And she was almost in tears, and she said, you know, the only time of the day where I am not afraid and worried for his safety is when I take him to school, and I know because he has a one-on-one aide, funded, by the way, through IDEA. I know Secretary McMahon doesn't know what that is, but this parent does. She feels safe for her kid. So the idea that they would threaten them and threaten these parents with clearly illegal actions over something they can't even bother to define because they think it's in their political interest. I think those of us on the stage went into public service to help people, not to use our positions to hurt people. And we need to tell those stories because we are winning. And we should. There is no reason why kids in high school shouldn't have a gay-straight alliance if that's what they want to participate in. There's no reason why we shouldn't teach about the history of this country. But that's what they want to create a fear around in a way that punishes ordinary people.
So let me follow up on that, because I think, again, when I think about lay folks and they see the law, you know, they see these edicts, I think it's puzzling to them to think that you can outlaw something that you can't define. That you can, you know, redline things out of our public education system, out of our administrative state, that they cannot even define. So how does the threat, for those who bowed to it, how did it work? Given the fact that everybody knows they do not know exactly what they're talking about, and it's not clear what kind of practices or policies actually violate their sense of the law. How are they able to weaponize this?
Well, and you know this so well, because it's not about the facts here, right? Trans kids are 1% or less of the population, but they're making them seem like every kid. Again, there's a 0% chance that a gender pronoun in my kid's classroom is going to make him less safe. It's just not going to happen. But they want to make you think the entire conversation about parental involvement in our kids' lives is based on that issue, and not the whole other set of issues that parents, like all of us, think about our kids. And so the idea here is to create fear so that institutions just say, you know what? And people who are running these institutions just say, it's easier for me not to pick this fight. I don't need this fight right now. That's a very slippery slope.
Yes.
Because you know what? If they can do it to DEI conversations in schools or trans youth or gay kids or whoever, then they can do it to you. If certain rights don't matter based on what the president says on a sheet of paper, look, we litigated birthright citizenship, something we put in the Constitution after we fought a civil war.
Right.
And he tried to rewrite it with a stroke of a pen, and people thought it was a joke. Well, that case went up to the United States Supreme Court. It's not a joke to me.
Yeah.
And so we got to stand up, and institutions need to stand up, and I hope you guys are energized and make sure that folks understand the importance of this and how much it matters in people's lives, because it is affecting ordinary people every single day. They may think it's a political game, and maybe to some of them it is. I know you know this. It is not a political game to millions of Americans across this country.
Yeah, thank you so much. And of course, you know, part of this conversation is the consequences of not fighting, right? And you all are the counterexample. What also exists out there is how often they were able to shut down policies and practices in education they didn't like, even though they couldn't define it. We've been talking for the last 8 years about how they went after CRT, critical race theory. They couldn't define it, but they could scare people enough that they were willing to let other folks come in and dictate what could be taught. And once that starts, then of course, it's a slippery slope, as you said before. All the reason why we have to fight this when it first shows up, not wait until it gets to our doorstep.
That's right.
So Attorney General Bonta, on April 4th, you filed a 16-state suit, America Public Health Association versus NIH, after the administration abruptly canceled more than 50 peer-reviewed NIH grants focused on things like Black maternal mortality, HIV in Latino communities, indigenous mental health, and other race-conscious research topics. And they did this without any scientific review. They offered no public rationale for any of their decisions other than the blanket, it's DEI. Interestingly enough, a judge, and I want to tell you, this judge was a Reagan appointee, so I'm putting that out there so you can understand how significant his finding was. He called the evidence of racial animus and discrimination the most palpable I have seen in 40 years. This is a Reagan appointee denouncing this racism. So take us inside this fight. Which facts or what data was decisive in this judge's description? And why did you move to litigation instead of seeking a private settlement that would have paused or perhaps gutted these life-saving studies?
Well, first, let me just say thank you for the opportunity to be here at Netroots, and honored to be on this amazing panel. We don't run to the White House to take a knee to Mr. Trump and at the White House like others have done. For us, it's simple. You don't break the law, we don't sue. You break the law, we sue. Pretty straightforward. And this is an administration that, if it was measured by how blatantly and brazenly and consistently and frequently it has broken the law, it would be the most successful presidential administration in the history of America. It is through the roof with its volume and the severity of its violations of the law. And it's incumbent upon us as attorneys general, an incredible team of attorneys general from across the nation, to hold this presidential administration, the president, accountable. No one is above the law, not even the president, and we will take you to court and sue you when you break the law. So it was simple. The attempt to withhold National Institute of Health grant funding was in violation of the law. This is critical funding that funds a lot of the research that you've just described, things like Alzheimer's and cancer research. It's led to incredible breakthroughs and therapies and cures when it comes to trauma and HIV/AIDS and other aspects. Universities receive millions of dollars a year for this groundbreaking research, including in California. It creates a lot of jobs and economic activity. And the Trump administration was focused on grants that were associated with diversity, equity, and inclusion, gender-affirming care, and vaccine hesitancy, among other things. So they're waging the culture wars through their withholding of grants and their actions. And the power of the purse belongs to Congress, by the way, not to the president. The president desperately wants that power. He craves it. He covets it. He keeps trying to exercise it. And we are the ones that are stopping him. And it is not his authority to be able to withhold these National Institutes of Health grants. And this is critical healthcare funding that supports diverse communities. And so we took him to court and we sued him. And with our cases, we sue when we believe we will win based on the facts and the law. You put us in front of any judge who will give us a fair shot, look at the facts, apply the law, we believe we will win. If you're a Republican appointee, like the appointee here, or if you're another appointee. And it was stark and telling that this judge found that this action from the federal government, the government that's supposed to protect our rights and defend our rights and defend the Constitution. The president rose his hand and swore an oath to protect and defend the Constitution and the laws of the United States, and then proceeded to break them and attack those rights and trample over those freedoms. So a judge saying that, without mincing words, that this, that there's a violation of rights, a discrimination against the LGBTQ community, that there was racial discrimination. He didn't beat around the bush and sugarcoat it. And we need that. That honest, unintimidated, unbullied, unbossed courage to speak truth to power, to speak out when you see it. And so we brought the case, we got the order, we were proud of it. But I think that what was at the root of it, that we fight and we hold you accountable. We don't capitulate, we don't acquiesce, we don't go cut a deal and give you something because you tried to violate our rights. How does that make any sense? And so, I was proud of that one, and I think that's an example of us fighting back.
And for those of us who are, sitting over in the rafters watching it, we jumped up and down. First, when the suit happened, and then, when this judge said what this judge said, it was like, okay, there is a reality here that people are willing to acknowledge. One of the things that I have wondered is whether, because this attack on diversity, equity, and inclusion, because of the attack on marginalized populations, is framed as a culture war, the real harms that actually happen, the fact that lives are being lost through this culture war, is sometimes erased. So this pushback and this making concrete, people will die when they don't have access to research. People will lose their lives because of that. This isn't just a war about ideas. This is a war that's material. Human lives depend and turn on that. Your effort to fight back makes that real. I guess the question is, why aren't more attorneys general seeing the example that you all are setting and recognizing that their commitment to their citizens means that they have to fight?
I mean, that's a great question that needs to be posed and directed directly to the Republican attorneys general. It does not apply to the Democratic attorneys general whatsoever. We, as a group, as a team, we are suing, we are fighting, we are pushing back, we are holding the Trump administration accountable, we are standing up for our people, we are not letting their rights and freedoms get trampled over, we are not letting their funding get pulled from them unlawfully and illegally. When we, early on, earlier this year, we were seeking universal injunctions in some of our cases that applied nationwide.
Right.
And my theory was that the red state Republican AGs were secretly rooting for us.
Yes, yes.
That they didn't have to publicly cross Trump
Yeah.
and not be the loyalist and apologist that they wanted to be in his eyes, but they would benefit from our work. They could draft behind us while we went into court and protected their funding, protected the constitutional rights of their people. They can no longer do that. You have to be a party to the case now to get the relief sought. And so they're going to really have to answer to their constituents and tell them why they are letting their constitutional rights be trampled over. They're letting them not have birthright citizenship or have their voting rights trampled over or not have critical funding for health care or for education. But it's an interesting question. I know we're going to talk about it some more, but there's law firms in my profession that embarrassingly and humiliatingly caved and didn't show the courage they should show. And they didn't fight. Like if there was ever a time to fight, it's now. And that's what attorneys do. They do it in court every day for their clients. They couldn't do it for themselves. And so it can be painful because he puts the squeeze on folks. He threatens funding and financial well-being. But it's not about money. It's about values and our future and the principles that this country is based on.
Can I add one thing?
Yes, please.
So in the state of Virginia this year, not next year, this year, there's a very important race for Attorney General. Jay Jones is running. He's a great candidate. He's a great guy. And if you live in Virginia and you want an AG who's going to help fight for the funding that your state deserves, you need to help us out. So just a little plug there.
So let me ask this next question for both of you. So just this morning, we learned that New York Attorney General Letitia James has been subpoenaed in relation to her fraud case against Donald Trump, a fresh moment of retaliation. So in this climate, what is this telling us about the deterioration of the rule of law? What is it telling us about the importance of the work that has to be done? Consider, lay people who we have to explain, how is it that you can be sued for holding someone accountable to the law? What is this telling us about the state of the rule of law here?
So friends, there may have been times in your life years ago when you would say, this is tyrannical, this is authoritarian, it is now. No hyperbole at all. This is the tactic of a tyrannical government that you have read about, that you know about. That country over there where the tyranny is going on, that country is now us. And so that is what we have to squarely look at it. And I'm so glad that we are at Netroots Nation because you all know this. This is why you're here. You all have an understanding of how government can abuse its authority to punish people that it considers a political enemy, and you have the courage and the bravery to stand up and do something about it. And so that's why we want to be talking to you, because we know that you get it. We know that you understand that, we're going to sue. You can count on us to do that. And there are some other great civil rights organizations also suing as well. We've done about 44 cases. Total, there's been around maybe over 200. But you all who are putting out messages of fighting back, you all who are organizing, you all who are doing that real on-the-ground work, that is the work that really, really must be done. Those of you who are running for office on the program of truly standing up for the rule of law, that is what must be done. And I believe that we have a mighty enough movement to overcome this moment. But let me tell you, this thing is not going to stay the same. It's going to get better or it's going to get worse. And if you lay down, it will absolutely get worse. And so the only thing for us to really do is to stand up, fight back, work together. Let's start here.
We can't pivot our way out of this crisis. Attorney General Platkin, let me come back to you to build on this conversation, and in particular, let's draw out, for example, the administration's effort to end birthright citizenship, which is an effort to erase one of the core promises of the 14th Amendment. It would leave thousands of newborns effectively stateless, passports, college age, college aid, health coverage, driver's licenses, all these could vanish for these children, and it's already happening in some states waiting to sue. So to make it concrete for people, if New Jersey had stood back rather than racing to the court within 48 hours, what are some of the other concrete harms to families that they would be facing?
Yeah, well, first of all, it was New Jersey along with my colleagues here and 20 or so others at home, and we've had, it is a good question as to why it wasn't 50, because this was not a controversial proposition. You read the plain, I think my 6-year-old could read the 14th Amendment and know what it says. There have been some very conservative judges who wrote papers saying the 14th Amendment said this is what it says, who now are trying to say other things because, again, institutions are bending to the will of somebody who is not respecting the rule of law, which sounds like an abstract term, and it is. And I think even to us lawyers, it's abstract. But it's not abstract to a mother in Camden, in South Jersey, who was planning to deliver a child in Philadelphia at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia when Pennsylvania didn't join our suit. So as the federal government at the highest court in this nation said that that child should have the rights and privileges of United States citizenship determined based on whether his mother was in the supermarket in Philadelphia when she went into labor. I mean, think about that. We have not decided citizenship in this country based on which state you live in since a period I don't think anybody wants to go back to in this room, and I would argue, I hope, anywhere in this country. So that's the reality of what we're dealing with. And I just want to underscore something Keith said, because it's related. All of these attacks on the rule of law are part of an effort to show that he's in charge, that the institutions that are supposed to stand up to somebody who is betraying the constraints placed on a president that the founding fathers of this nation wisely put there because they were concerned about living again under the tyranny of a king. That's why we have them.
Yes.
This president, no regard for that. And so all of these things, rewriting the 14th Amendment, trying to withhold funding in ways that punishes students, weaponizing law enforcement in ways that should terrify us, and make no mistake, are making us less safe. For administration that talks a lot about law and order, I work every day with federal law enforcement officers who are fed up that they can't prosecute gun crimes in our states anymore because they're too busy sending subpoenas about a civil lawsuit under a theory of deprivation of civil rights that no real lawyer thinks is real on a case that the Attorney General of New York won. So this is all part of a broader effort to undermine our institutions on a pathway that maybe this president doesn't study history, but people around him do. They know what this is about. It's about putting us on a path to authoritarianism. It's about attacking the courts. It's about attacking law enforcement, weaponizing law enforcement. It's about attacking the press. It's about attacking institutions of higher education. All of the institutions meant to check the authority of an executive and keep you safe. Those are under attack. And birthright citizenship, I think at 8 p.m. on the first day in office that he chose to try to rewrite the Constitution of the United States to say that babies born on U.S. soil are not, in fact, citizens. Again, something we fought the bloodiest war in U.S. history to end the debate over. He tried to restart it.
And of course, many of us don't know that because of the effort to erase that history, right? We all, according to him, we only want the positive history, and that is not part of their view of what the positive history is. Just think about that for
Forgive me, Kim, but I just want to say, some might think, no, he doesn't have a plan. The people around him don't have a plan. He's just an ignorant, and he's trying to grab power. No, they do have a plan. They're, particularly J.D. Vance. They have this guy, Curtis Yarvin. You heard of this guy? Who heard of this guy? Study this guy. And he has a very cogent plan that democracy is over. Society should be run by technocrats who use computers to just tell people what to do. They subscribe to this school of thought. They are trying to do exactly what it looks like they're trying to do.
And at the same time, when they've been abundantly clear about their disdain for democracy,
Right.
abundantly clear about how they're going to overtake it, we don't get nearly the kind of coverage about that as we should. We get
Right.
moral panics about trans kids. We get moral panics about CRT. We get moral panics about women being out of control. But what really is demolishing our democracy is billionaire technocrats who think democracy is dead.
Right.
So we've got this imbalance in our coverage. I think that, and I want to come back to you, A.G. Bonta, because you also mentioned, the law firms. One of the arguments that's given for taking the knee is that, look, the resources, the money, we have no choice but to fight. So that is the argument. But you've done the math, and you've come to a different conclusion about why we need to fight. Yes, the principles, but at the same time, this idea that it's too expensive or we'll lose too much just isn't true. So you all have argued that standing up for Californians makes better economic sense. Can you walk us through that argument?
Absolutely. So we've brought 37 lawsuits in 28 weeks in the state of California, many of them in multi-state with my colleagues up here. We have, from day one, used the law as our North Star, saying if he breaks the law, we'll sue. And we have spent $5 million on our litigation to date, and we have secured, protected, and defended $168 billion of funding that the Trump administration was improperly trying to withhold from us. Money that Congress appropriated to California. California, by the way, sorry to go on a proud California rant, but
that's all right. I'm all here for it.
Fourth largest economy in the world, donor state to the federal government. We give more in federal taxes than we receive back in federal funding, and they're trying to withhold the funding. We subsidize red states that need support, that are wrestling with economies not as strong as ours. And so we made a calculation that for every dollar we've spent, we've brought back $33,600 to the state that we've protected. And in our lawsuits, we're not just suing, we're winning. In the 20 cases in which, thank you, in the 20 cases in which a court issued an order on a preliminary injunction or temporary restraining order, we won 18 of those.
Wow.
And so 90% success rate, $168 billion protected, $1 spent for a $33,600 return. That would make Wall Street investors envious if they could get that ROI and that return. And so it's been financially actually very beneficial to the state of California.
Tim,
So,
sorry, can I just make
yes,
one
go
quick
ahead.
point on that? I hope these folks that are saying it's the right business calculation to capitulate and throw the rule of law out the window try to go do business in China or Russia or places that they can throw you in jail if they don't like you. They can take your property if they don't like you. The state runs everything. Go tell me how great it is to be in an economy over there. And we'll see how their perspective might change.
Yep.
So while we're on that, I want to go back to the law firms to you as well. So how do we explain their capitulation? Is it that they really don't know that there might be winnable strategies and returns for fighting back? Is it that their principles run contrary to what they think the bottom line is and they're just mistaken? Are they just cowards? How do you think about what we've seen from those who actually were committed in the first Trump administration to fight back, and now you can't find the fight in them that they used to have? How do you understand that?
I think it's that multiple choice answer, all of the above. Look, I think I've been incredibly disappointed. I'll just say it, with some of our colleagues in our profession. I've been disappointed with institutions of higher education. I've been disappointed with members of the media. That I've been proud of the ones that have done their job. But I've been disappointed with ones and business decisions that I think are complete capitulations. Stephen Colbert is a proud New Jersey resident, so give them a shout out. Look, if we're banking this idea the rule of law was so strong and it was the underpinning. These are just norms, okay? Like there's a constitution, and a constitution is an embodiment of norms that we say we believe in. And what we have seen, frankly, is too many people are putting short-term calculus ahead of long-term thinking about the stability and the rights of people in this country. It's not going to work out for them in the long run if we keep on this course. I am confident of that. History has made that quite clear. And for law firms, I don't know why you would hire a law firm to go fight for you when they won't even fight for themselves, but that's a question.
That's right.
But here's the reality, and this is where you all come in. These folks think there is greater risk to them personally by not standing up for things they might personally believe in, and I believe actually a lot of them do. If they capitulate, or if they don't capitulate, then if they stand with us. And we've got to, in some way, shape, or form, change that calculus. We talked about Costco. We talked about other institutions that saw, like our universities, our press, our businesses, they need to see that you believe in things, that we believe in things, and that they're better off standing for the right thing in the long run, because I believe they are, but we have seen far too many places and institutions that I thought would be stronger with respect to the rule of law and standing up for everybody's rights than we have seen. And it is a very scary place when, frankly, the folks up here at institutions like ours are some of the few that have stayed strong. We need more people, and those people need your support.
If I may, if I can add, I just want to say, so Jenner and Block stood up. Perkins Coie stood up. They got orders from court saying this is a First Amendment right for you to represent your clients. And so these other firms who have caved, they don't have a good excuse. There's law that is out there that would allow them to get right and do the right thing. Another point, Target, my home state company, hires a lot of people in Minnesota. Their sales are down 7% because they lined up with Lucifer. The thing is that, they like to come and tell me about how they're doing all these good things. I'm like, okay, fine, but you said you're done with DEI. Oh, but they said we really didn't mean it because we're doing all this and all that. Yeah, but you stood up with this guy and you capitulated. You gotta, if you want me to walk back in your store, because I'm not walking back in your store, you've got to start doing you've got to renounce Satan, and that's what you got. I mean, I hate to be so whatever, but that's how it is. And at the same time, Costco is making money. Mm-hmm. So here he is driving up tariffs on them, breaking up their supply chain, telling them who to hire and how to hire, and they're on his side?
Yeah.
I don't want them to be on my side. I want them to be on their own side.
Yeah.
Because they're losing money because they're standing with the wrong people.
Right.
And so I just think it's important to keep that in mind. And Costco is eating their lunch because they failed the moral test that they had. So
Keith, while you're on that, you have said, we can fight our fight, but our role in the large South does not operate automatically.
Right.
There must be the engagement of the population, of the populace to protect
100.
Our democracy. So you've all been talking about how we have to change the equation on the ground.
Right.
We've been talking about how it has to be costly to capitulate. We've talked about how appeasement has to be taken off the table. We can't just watch them do it.
Yep.
We have to make it consequential. What are some of the things that you want to leave people with that they can do to be, there is this concept in the civil rights law of private attorneys general.
Right.
If we're going to all be private attorneys general to support our democracy, what does that look like? And I want to ask each of you that as our final question.
Well, let me be quick. So here's the reality. We have been suing. I mean, I think that if you add up every lawsuit that all the Dems have filed, I think their number is like 44. And yet the civil rights organizations have, if we add them all up, they're over 200. But yet we need you to keep it hot on the ground out there across America. That means showing up. If there's a court hearing on gender affirming care, you can pack the court. You can hold a press conference outside the court denouncing what the administration is doing. We need the artists to really get organized. Is any artists in the room? Anybody who does art, and that's what you do? We need you guys to organize. We got to create an aesthetic which will inspire the people to rise up in this moment. We need you all to run for office on a platform of opposing Trumpism. We need you all to support candidates who are doing this, and mostly we need you to organize community meetings. I'll wrap up here. This is not the first AG panel we've done, as you know, Kim. We started in Arizona, then we went to Minnesota, then we went to Colorado and Oregon, then we went to New York, and then we went to, we went to California. Seattle, yep. Yeah. And I don't want to leave anybody out. We'll come to a place near you. Call us, invite us. But we're coming to the people because we know very well that the answer to this problem is not in a courtroom. It is on the streets of this country and in the hearts of the people.
Rob?
Yeah, I'll just say, stay enraged, stay engaged. Don't be hopeless because we're not helpless.
That's right.
We have power. The most potent power that there is people power. And the boss of Trump is not his billionaire buddies or the greedy corporations. It's you and me and us. And there is more chapter to be written in the story of America, and we're going to write it together because this is a country of, for, and by the people. And that means we got to stay engaged. Democracy dies in the dark with apathy and neglect, and it thrives with engagement and activism and participation. So everyone can do something. No one needs to do everything, but everyone needs to do something.
That's right.
And so let me leave you with this. The 3 C's are really important right now. Courts, crowds, courage. Courts, crowds, and courage. We're going to court to hold Trump accountable when he breaks the law. Crowds are important, whether it be the hands-off national mobilization or the No Kings. Hit the streets, raise your voice, speak loud, speak proud, and be courageous, what we were just talking about earlier. Don't capitulate, don't acquiesce, stand up for our rights, stand up for the principles that make our nation what it is, and make sure that we have an enduring democracy. And the way to do that is by participating and by fighting with courage.
That's right.
Matthew.
Just like we should look to history to understand the moment we're in, we should look to history to have hope. Because this is not the first time this country has been in a dark period. There's no question we're in a dark period right now. But this isn't the first time that we've been there. It's not. I think the people who advocated to end abolitionists thought it was easy. You think people who pushed for reforms and Reconstruction, or the 14th Amendment and the 13th Amendment and the 15th Amendment thought it was easy, or the people who led the women's suffrage movement thought it would be easy, or the civil rights movement, the gay marriage equality movement, on and on. It's a story of America. And we have seen what happens when you stand up. You've heard Rob's numbers, 160 billion. It's 23 billion in New Jersey. I'm sure it's billions in Minnesota.
Yep.
And it's not just because we won in court. It's because they have reacted when you make your voices heard. And I'll give you one very specific example. Just a couple weeks ago, they turned back on the spending on $150 million to New Jersey and billions of dollars of education spending across the country. Not because of a court decision, but because of the pushback that they got from communities across this country that said, no way in hell are you going to freeze education spending a month before back to school night. And guess what? 10 Republican senators sent the White House a letter saying you got to turn that money back on. And they did. They didn't do it, I assure you, because we sued. They might have eventually. They did it because they heard from folks on the ground. And so we got to be clear-eyed about where we're in, but we can't lose hope. We cannot lose hope because what you guys are fighting for absolutely is worth fighting for, and people's lives depend on it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kim.
If ever you heard that lawyers can't be inspirational, you haven't talked to these lawyers. So thank you, Matthew, Rob, and Keith, for holding strong Larry Julian too. So, and let me just say, the conversation continues next Tuesday with Keith and a whole nother group of attorneys general at Martha's Vineyard. If you want to be there in the island, come join us. And it's also going to be live streamed. So check us out at aapf.org. Thank you, Netroots Nation. Thank you all for your attention. Let's go and fight.
Great job, brother.